Hello, fellow Redbirds. Welcome to Bird Fans Forever, podcast number 40. Please follow us on @BirdFansForever Twitter account to be notified of our latest podcast videos and participate in our fun polls. Also, go visit our website, www.birdfansforever.com, where you can find a list of our previous podcasts. If you haven't already done so, go visit Bird Fans Forever on YouTube and dunk on that subscribe button. YouTube has our archive of classic Redbird games we've accumulated thanks to so many Redbird fans who've been kind enough to share their video libraries with us. We're still adding to our list of online games, and fans can go there and find an old game to watch. Our guest today was Illinois State University assistant coach under Bob Bender from 1989 to 1994, coaching Jon for Jon's senior year. He also played at Duke and was captain of their 1988 Final Four team and was named NABC National Defensive Player of the Year. He served as assistant coach for the Indiana Pacers under Larry Brown. He was general manager of the 76ers from 1998 to 2007. He was also general manager of the New Jersey Nets from 2010 to 2016. We'll be right back with Billy King.
And welcome to Bird Fans Forever, episode 40, with my assistant coach, Billy King. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Jon. How are you?
I'm doing good. This is awesome. I love it when my coaches are on. I get to learn some stuff about how bad of a player I was and that kind of things. Normally what we do, Coach, is we start with how'd you get to ISU? But because of how you got to Duke really kind of leads into how you got to ISU, we're going to be talking a lot about Duke here in this first segment. So how did you get to Duke?
Well, it started with Coach K. He actually was Mike Krzyzewski at that time before Coach K because he hadn't won a few games. But he started recruiting me early, I guess early in my sophomore year. And then Bob Bender joined the staff later, and he started the process of the recruiting, came into the home visit, came to see me play. And when I went on my visit, he was there. And Tommy Amaker, who played at Duke, he and I played together at AAU from the time we were 12, 16,
wow.
So we'd known each other for a long time. He went the year before I went. So that was sort of a pull. Once Tommy went, it was like, I want to follow Tommy, and then I liked Coach K and Coach Bender. So it became that sort of trifecta, I would say.
That is awesome. Well, we talked off air, so why don't we talk about something I just figured out, and I was talking to Sonny and Gerard and Randy last night, is tell us the three teams you lost to your sophomore, junior, and senior year, because this is just absolutely mind-blowing, right?
Yeah. Well, sophomore year we went into the championship game 37-2, and we're playing Louisville. We're heavily favored, and we lose to Louisville. Purvis Ellison, who ended up, they won the championship. We lost in the championship game by 3. To this day, I've not watched that game ever.
Really?
To this day, and I don't think I ever will watch it again.
You actually, Coach, let me interrupt for a second. You played well. I have the footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
you played well.
Me personally, or
you did? You personally played well. Yeah. Your team played well too. But
I just made sure I stayed out of the way. We had Johnny Dawkins, and I knew my role. My role was to play defense, get them the ball, and hustle and play hard. And so I was a lot like you, Jon. But I was a little bit more coachable than you, but I was a lot like you. And then my junior year, we make because we lose all those seniors, Johnny Dawkins, Jay Billis, Mark Allery, and so we're able to get back to the Sweet 16 in Cincinnati, and we're playing Indiana. So it's the first time Coach K is playing his mentor Bobby Knight in the NCAA tournament. It's a big deal, and they have Steve Alford. We ended up losing that game, and they went on to win the national championship that year. Then my senior year, we had beaten Kansas during the regular season, out in Kansas in overtime, and we had won the regular season. Well, actually, we ended up winning the ACC tournament, beat Carolina 3 times. Got to get that. We beat Carolina 3 times. Beat them over there, beat them at home my senior game, and then beat them in the tournament the week later. And then we make a run, beat Temple in the regional finals. They were in the 1 seed, and we get there, and we end up playing Kansas again in Kansas City, so it really wasn't a neutral site. But they played well. Danny Manning had those guys playing well, and we lose to them, so they were the champions. So my last 3 years of college basketball tournament, we lose to the eventual champions. So I guess it took the champions to beat us each time.
Yeah. And when we saw that, I was like, holy cow. So other cool things, Coach, you played in 35 of your 39 possible games. It looks like your junior year, did you get hurt for 4 games and sit out?
Yeah, I broke we were playing at Notre Dame, and I broke my wrist the first probably 3 minutes of the game. I fell. I broke it. I knew I broke it. So at halftime, I told Quinn Snyder, I said, I think I broke my wrist. He goes, don't tell anybody. I said, I'm not. I took 2 Motrin, played the rest of the game. In overtime, we ended up losing. And the trainer said the next day, if it hurts, go get it x-rayed in the morning student center. So I couldn't close my car door. So I thought, in my mind, I still didn't think it was really broken. So
right.
But I wanted to get x-rays so they'd let me practice and keep playing. So I went and got x-rays. And I remember the residents came in, the orthopedic, and he says, you broke your wrist. I said, no, bring the real doctor. You guys just residents. Bring in the real doctor. And Dr. Frank Bass comes in. He goes, well, you broke it. You broke the navicular. And he goes, well, we got the tournament coming up in 2 weeks. So he says, we'll put a cast on and then maybe take it off and tape it up so you can play in the tournament and then recast it when you're not playing. So we went and told Coach K. He didn't even know I got hurt. And he was shocked. So I missed the final 4 games of the season. But the next day after I put the cast on, they realized that they could put a screw in there. Dr. Urbanik, who was one of the best hand surgeons in the world, says, if we put a screw in there, he could be back playing in 2 weeks without a cast or anything. So they called me. I went over there to the hospital. They put a screw in. Wow. I missed 4 games, and I was back playing in the ACC tournament and NCAA tournament.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, Coach, that is crazy. So,
which I realize now usually should be still 6 to 8 weeks. Shouldn't be 2 months.
Absolutely. I broke my foot before you guys got to us on the jump ball against Indiana against Jadlow. And I don't tell anybody for 4 games. I just keep icing it, and it's broken. And so, because you as a player, you kind of know. And so, yeah.
But you want to play, so you figure if I don't say anything, I'll just keep putting me out there.
Yeah. And the clock doesn't stop ticking as an NCAA athlete, right? It's over no matter what on this time and this date. And so I'd already redshirted and didn't want to miss that. So that is awesome. All right, Coach. So I do like to tease. Coach's numbers are a whole lot better than mine, but I did beat him in free throws, even though I wasn't coachable.
Well, I mean, John, I mean, you were talking about the numbers off air. I mean, if you couldn't beat me, there's a lot of people out there could beat me. That's the one area I was not good at, was free throw shooting.
Yeah.
But I could guard you.
Yeah. Oh my God, you could guard it. You defensive player of the year in '88, your senior year. So, right. Oh my God, yeah. And I remember in practice that was you were on us like anytime we would get out of position, get out of stance, you were always on us about more than any other coach. And so we knew that one because we knew that one. So, all right. So you're at Duke. How is it like to play for Coach Bender?
You know, he was very good because he knew me, especially knew me as a person. So if I wasn't, like when I broke my wrist, you know, Coach K had one assistant coach that sat sort of in the middle of the bench, almost like probably Coach Donowald did. It was a Bobby Knight thing.
Yes.
And so that was Coach Bender. So for those 4 games that I wasn't playing that 2 weeks, I sat next to him. And he knew like I wasn't into the game, so he would always, come on, Billy, get into the game, get talking. He was like a motivational guy. He was always pushing you, and not in a way of yelling, but he was more guiding you, like pushing you beyond and giving you the confidence. I remember him talking about me, saying that I could be the next T.R. Dunn, who played in the league, was a defensive guy. He talked about that nonstop, that could be my role at the next level. And looking back on it, I got to meet T.R. Dunn and got to know him pretty well, and then I told him the story. And unfortunately, I didn't play in the league as long as T.R. did. But but that was what Coach Bender used as a motivation for me.
So you get done with Duke, and you end up. So what happened next? I mean, I think you went to the league, right? Then
I tried out. Charlotte was the expansion. That was the first year Charlotte the expansion team. So. They invited me down, went to their tryout, and, didn't make it. I remember in the summer when they cut me, the assistant coach came in and cut me, and then the GM came back and asked me to come back and audition for the radio job. So I went back down, 3 days later and auditioned for the radio job and came in second for that. But I thought that would have been pretty cool if I got that.
That would have been very cool.
Yeah. And then I tried out for the Sacramento Kings later that summer, and they had me playing power forward, and I was 6'6", like 215 pounds. I wasn't a power forward material, but
right.
And they thought I was going. All the veterans said you're going to come back to veteran camp because they got put you in your natural position. And I remember getting a call from the GM at the time, who was Bill Russell. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah. And he called and he said, look, we've got two guys that are with guaranteed contracts that we don't like, but we can't cut them. So, it's not going to be a spot for you. So, and that's when I talked to my agent, Larry Fleischer, the late Larry Fleischer, and Danny Ferry's dad, Bob Ferry, was a GM. And they both said, look, you've got more going for you. You got a Duke degree. Why are you going to delay your career? Get a career started rather than keep chasing this dream. And they were right, because I ended up had a job offer from ABC Sports to become a production assistant and work for them and live in New York, or work for a local TV station in Raleigh. And I chose to work locally. And so I shot and edited for the 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock sports department. And then on weekends, I was an announcer for the Ohio Valley Conference for their midnight games on ESPN. So, and then I was fortunate that same year in the NCAA tournament, I got to announce the first round with Ron Franklin in Dallas, Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I think about it, and it'll tie into Illinois State, that I played in the NCAA tournament. The next year I televised, I was an announcer in the NCAA tournament, and then next year I was assistant coach in the NCAA tournament 3 years in a row.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was I remember Coach Bender always said if he got a job, he'd want me to work for him. And so Duke played in the Final Four the next year in Seattle. I wasn't sure if he's going to get a job, so I quit the TV station, figured it out next, and then I went to Final Four. Coach Bender got the job, and he came back, and I said, all right, I'm ready. He goes, well, come visit. I go, no, I'll take it. I don't, I didn't know where Illinois State was located. Yeah, I'm all in. So, but I flew out and visited and had a great meeting with Ron Wellman, and I was 23 years old. I was excited to let's go recruit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and I was 23 years old. Right, I mean, I'll turn 22 in June, so I'm just a year younger than you.
Yeah.
So
I don't think you realized that until later in the year.
We didn't figure that out until and we were talking about this off air. So all the coaches come in, and we're getting ready to go home for the summer and do our workouts. I'm still in a boot and cast, right? I've had my second foot surgery. I'll have my third one in August, so that I'm ready to even come back and try to play my senior year. Because I had broken 3 of those bones so horribly. Coach and I were just talking about this. So under Coach Donewald, you were not allowed to go to the bars at all. No. Off limits, not happening. So we're sitting in the tee in the new league locker room, right? And you guys all come walking in, and here's a couple team rules, right? Because we had covered our stuff to work on for the summer, and everybody was given a packet and the things they had to work on. And then you guys came in with the rule of, if you're over 21 and you're in the bar, and as you're walking into the bar, if the coaches are there, you have to leave, correct?
Yes.
But if we're in the bar and you come walking in, you're going to leave. So I'm getting hit by Gerard and Sonny and Ricky. And they're like, no, this is a trap. It's a trap, right? So, yeah, we were just laughing about that.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was, because the one thing I think that we learned from Coach K, and I think is that we wanted you guys to be college students. We didn't want to take that away from you. And Coach K always had a saying is, he didn't have a lot of rules. He had a lot of standards, but he had a lot of rules, because he says people that have a lot of rules are people that don't want to make decisions. And the way we looked at it is, the more you do good, you put chips in the bank, good things in the bank. And if you have a mistake, you've got, then you can draw on those good things you've done. And if you have a rule that you can't do this, can't do that, then you're treating everybody equally. You're not treating everybody fairly.
Okay, Coach. So you're now at Illinois State. Fall comes in. You got 5 seniors, a whole bunch of underclassmen. Richard Thomas is a freshman, first time coaching. Walk us through How does that look?
It was getting out of my mind as being a player, because it's been 2 years. So it was getting into coaching, and I'm thinking about everything that we did at Duke. So when Coach Bender's talking the drills, contesting, two-man contesting wide, and I'm thinking all the emphasis that Coach K made. So that's when I'm, everything he was yelling at me, now I get to yell at you guys, Coach. And being the youngest on the staff, I felt I was the one needed to make sure I had the energy every day, and the excitement. But it was a learning for me as well. Ron Wellman gave me the best advice when I first got the job. I met with him, and he says, being at the level you were at Duke, you've got to realize some of these players may not have that same work ethic and things that you did.
We had the work ethic.
Yeah, not skill set. And he said,
not the talent.
Yeah, and he said, as a coach, you've got to be able to then understand that and can't be frustrated with them. You still got to coach them. He says, if you can do that, you'll be a good coach. He says, if you sit there and go, well, they can't do it, and give up on them, then you're not going to be a coach. And that's probably the best advice to make me realize these guys aren't going to be like the same as your teammates or you were at Duke. They're still talented players, but you've got to be able to adjust your mindset. And that helped me along the way.
All right, so I've had all the rest of the coaches talk about the fight in the locker room. You come from a legendary program. We kind of talked off air that you guys didn't really have a fight. What's that get you thinking?
Well, I had played on AAU teams that had fights with some really talented players that gone on to play at the collegiate level. And I looked at it as, if the fight is about something that's good because you want to win, then it's a good thing. Because, families, you're going to have squabbles and disagreements. And, if your brothers, if you're your brother, you fought before because, it could be over a toy. And so to me, it wasn't from a standpoint of a malicious, like somebody you're being selfish. It was more like it was a challenging thing, and I think it's what the group needed at that point in time.
100% agree.
But being honest, I'd never seen it being at Duke. I'd seen it in the AAU environment, but I'd never seen it coming to Duke because I think we were too afraid to get yelled at by Coach K. But I thought that was the moment that really brought us all together to realize either we're going to fold or we're going to come together as a group, which I think we did.
Yeah, we did. All right, so you had talked off air. You play in the tournament. You announced the tournament the next year. Yeah. Now you're getting to go against Michigan, the defending national champions, our senior year. So talk about now all of a sudden coaching in the tournament.
We're going to Long Beach. And being at Duke, I was spoiled because we never traveled far to go to the tournament.
Hello, you're Duke. You're number one
first
usually.
year, I think we went to Texas for the first round. My sophomore year, first round was in Greensboro, so it was an hour drive. The regionals were at East Rutherford, so it was a short hour flight. And then my sophomore year, the furthest we went was, I think, Cincinnati. Then my senior year, the first round was in Chapel Hill, so I stayed in my own apartment. And then the next round was the East Rutherford. So then when they said we're going to Long Beach, I said, oh, this is great. Never traveled much. And playing Michigan, I believed we could win because I think as a group, you guys were so mature and and you had this air of confidence about you that, it didn't matter who you were playing, because we had played great teams that year. So you guys believed, okay, it's Michigan, but we can beat them. And going in the game, to this day, I think about this all the time, John. We were up 3, and they have the ball at timeout. I think it's like 40 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, something like that left. And as coaches, we tried to decide, do we go zone? Because we had been playing man, but they were bigger. We thought, do we go zone to come out different and maybe – because they didn't have that many shooters. We match up the shooters. And sure enough, they worked it, and they ended up hitting a 3 and tied it up. And then I think they went on to win the game. But I think about that. We should have went man, but then they could have went inside. But that's the thing as a coach. You sit there. I remember we all debated it back and forth. But I think about that because I think if we'd have won that game, I thought we could have won the next one. I think it would have been maybe Loyola Marymount.
Well, with Hank Gathers.
Yeah.
So,
But I believe we could have won that next one as well. Yeah, if we could have got by Michigan, I thought we had a chance to get to the Sweet 16. That team was that good.
No, and I love that you say that, but man, that would have been a tough one because they were scoring like 190 points a game.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but we'd have slowed them down. We didn't control the tempo.
Unlike Michigan, who played against them, because I had a chance to talk to Fisher 2 weeks ago, and Fisher tried to run with them, and that is the worst NCAA loss in the history of the NCAA. They lost 178-78. They lost by 100 points, right?
Yeah, and you couldn't run because they were so well conditioned. To be honest with you, after you guys had graduated, because I don't know if you could have done it, but I studied their conditioning program, Loyola Marymount, and preseason conditioning, and so we implemented that. It was like a lot of 6 a.m. Sprints. We had them on the track doing the sprint work that they did preseason.
Wow. No, we did a lot of running. I didn't because I was still coming off that broken foot, and I wasn't allowed to run until October 1st. So all the preseason sprint work, I wasn't allowed to do. I was getting sent to the pool with Ruben and got to swim lots of laps, and so it's the best we could do. So, but yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah. Matter of fact, we would do Monday, Wednesday at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then Fridays we do 6 a.m. Because that way, if people wanted to go home for the weekend preseason, they could leave and have to stay around. So they weren't happy with me at 6 a.m. being
on a Friday.
On a Friday.
Preseason. You're killing their Thursday night happy hours.
Yeah, but I made sure they had good Friday nights, though.
All right, so you get done with that season, go into the next one.
The next season, you guys, we lose all the seniors, so now we're bringing in the Vandergaards. It's a really young class.
William Hamer, Charles Barnes,
Chuck Barnes,
and Scott Taylor.
Scott Taylor from and when they were all over. Mike was from Minnesota. Scott was from Boston. Chuck was from Chicago. Yeah. Todd was from Quincy. Yeah. And we started the year. We just were getting beat. We couldn't win a game. And I remember as a staff one time we had lost a bunch of games and we were frustrated. We were up after game talking. We're thinking they're spoiled fat cats. So we're gonna teach them lessons. So we go down and take everything out of the locker, take all their shoes, all their gear, and we put it in this bin. And we tell them they don't deserve the right to practice in Redbird Arena. So we go over to the Horton Field House and make them practice there. Then we go buy Fruit of the Loom T-shirts and get the old great gym shorts they got to wear, and they had to write their number on with a marker on their shirts. And the coaches, we had V-neck T-shirts because we figured but we wore the shorts as well. We wouldn't let the janitors clean the locker room. They had to do that afterwards. They had to do their own laundry. Wow. And they couldn't leave until it was all done. So after practice, they had to, wash their stuff, make sure it was in, clean the locker room themselves. We did that for 3 days, and then our next game is at Southwest Missouri State, and we get the win. Yeah. And we were thinking, what do we do now? If we don't get that win, what are we going to do? But I think it was just trying to teach them about and bring them together as a team, because as coaches, sometimes you want to make it so hard so that they dislike you and they bond with each other more and they rally around. And I think that's what that group did. And it laid a foundation for the younger players of what it was going to take. We still had Scott Fowler. I think Scott was coming. I think Scott got hurt.
He had blown his ACL before you went to Dayton. Yeah. Minutes before you guys were locking up practice. Yeah. Yeah,
that was right before the season started. So it was they didn't have a lot of the senior leadership that they needed.
Agreed.
But I think it was a good foundation building block for them.
All right, you get through that season, and you come back, and now you guys are going to win back-to-back championships.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it was laid that year that we, when they were young as freshmen, because they had gotten great minutes, but they knew the work ethic that it'd take. I think that's when I implemented the Loyola Marymount conditioning, preseason conditioning, that off season. But I think the foundation was laid when they were freshmen, and they knew what it was going to take, and they got to play a lot their freshman year, but it was nice to me. Coaching and playing in Redbird Arena to me was a great place because you had the fans; they were there. You had great crowds every night, every game. It was a unique atmosphere. I think if you put what we were able to accomplish there in our 4 years there, starting with you guys, in today's era, we would have got a lot more. ESPN, social media would have talked about what we were able to accomplish there because it was in that league. You think about it. Stan Allback was at Bradley. Creighton had can't think of his name. Just Tony Baroni.
Tony Baroni, yep.
Tony Baroni was there. I mean, Ashraf Amaya ended up playing in the league. I mean, there were some good teams in the league. Tubby Smith ended up coming when I was there. He was at Tulsa. Wichita State was just starting to build their program back from when it was in the heyday. So I really enjoyed, in every game, and you had big games on Saturday, you knew like Saturday night the crowd was going to be there, and it was going to be, and your senior year to host a tournament there.
Yeah,
I never heard that place louder. It was incredible feeling to win it there and have that crowd the way it was.
It was awesome. Perfect time to stop.
Yep.
All right, Coach. So we're going to shift gears here. You were a GM for the Nets and the 76ers. And remember, I'm dyslexic, so there's times I get things backwards. It's not – I know I followed your career. But what I really wanted to talk about was do a comparison to being a GM and getting a guy signed versus what coaches are having to do with the transfer portal and NILs today. Well,
the NBA, you either can draft. Once you draft them, you have their rights, and you're going to have them at the minimum 4 years. When you're recruiting free agent, it's almost like recruiting in the college world. But once you sign to a contract, whether it's 1, 2, 3, you've got them.
Right.
That you decide to trade them. In college now, you don't know how long even if they commit to you from high school. That's only really 1 year. Maybe they could leave halfway through the year if they decide they want to enter the portal. And then you've got kids, so now the players it's only a 1 year. So you're building the team for that season, trying to figure them out as people, get them to gel. And that team is probably not going to be intact the next year. And that's the thing. It's not good I think it's not good for the kids because coaches now aren't allowed to coach them because for fear they may leave. So they don't say the hard, tough conversations, challenge them, push them beyond their limits because if you do, they go, I don't want to take that. I'm going to go someplace. I don't want somebody pushing me.
Right.
So they never get pushed out of their comfort limits anymore. And so they're just going along the way, I guess, the path of least resistance.
Yeah, and we were talking off air, but Coach, look at somebody like me, right, who is a role player, good at what I do, but not going to get the points and all that kind of stuff. But you need those type of players to play. Now even these role players want to go be stars somewhere. They don't want to stick around and do their time. And talk about the educational piece, right? You have a degree from Duke. I have a degree from Illinois State. Those degrees are worth as much or more than having it, because a lot of these guys, even if they go play overseas, they're not going to make that much, or they're only going to do it for a couple of years. Well,
when you start transferring schools and trying to get those credits to transfer in, and hope you work towards a degree, most likely it's not. So I wish that they're going to give them all this, the NIL money and all this stuff, just get rid of the student athlete, just call them athletes. But the bigger problem is kids are entering in the portal, and so they lose that scholarship they just left. And some of them aren't even getting a place to go to. So now they're stuck out there in no man's land, and they have no place to go because somebody promised them something, but then they can't get that. So I don't see how it changes because once the genie's out of the bottle, I don't see how you put it back in now.
No,
so I think I just hope that universities start doing a better job of developing better culture so that kids get there and don't want to leave. And I think I said this is that so many schools are recruiting the high school kids and they're recruiting the portal, and they're forgetting about the kids on campus. And I think you got to spend more time recruiting, getting to know them as people, and then they'll want to stay because they want to be a part of the program.
How was it the day you got the call to go into the Hall of Honor, because that's the Hall of Fame for Duke, right? When you got that call?
It was pretty special because Coach K called and told me I wasn't able to get back for the game, for the ceremony they had, but it's a great honor to be part of the brotherhood, as we call it at Duke. It's a special bond. And to me, to be up there with some of the people I'm up there with is really special. But I just look at it, I was just honored to play with some of the guys I played with. That to me was, they're brothers for life. I mean, Jay Billis, right. Tommy Amaker, Johnny Dawkins, Mark Allery, Danny Ferry, Quinn Snyder, Kevin Strickland, my roommate. We all are still in contact and we still talk. And I know people give us a hard time about the brotherhood, but it really is. I think if I see someone from Duke, whether it's J.J. Redick or, the first thing we all say if you talk to Coach, and we ask about each other's families. It's almost like Coach K created his own West Point with Duke basketball.
Yeah.
And, you go in as a freshman and, as a kid, and you come out as a man.
Yeah. And in Illinois State, right, we have our alumni games and we do our alumni stuff.
I see that.
And so
I don't have a shirt like that, but I see that.
Yeah, I know a guy that can help you get one. And so that is the thing, is I can talk to Redbirds that came before me and after me and have those conversations. Again, that's that culture that I think these kids that are transferring is missing out on. And so, but yeah. All right, Coach, we hit that one. How is it like to be a GM in the pros? How hard are those guys to deal with? I mean, you got people making a lot of money.
Well, the key is, I say the job's like a fireman. There's going to be a fire every day. You just know how big it is that you got to put out. It could be a brush fire. It could be a 4 or 5 alarm fire that you got to take care of. When you have the job, it's one of the most difficult, high stressful jobs you could ever have, and sometimes you wish, why are you doing it? And when you don't have it, it's one of the jobs you wish you had again, because the pressure of doing the draft, trade deadline, winning games, it keeps you in the pressure cooker as a player.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is the bonds you make. I mean, it's the connections, whether it's Allen Iverson, Kyle Korver, a lot of those players that we talked about, Darren Williams, I still talk to on their birthday. I sent them a text. But it was one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever done, but it's one of the ones that now quality of life is a lot better. Yeah.
Raising kids, right?
Yeah.
You got to have time. We've been trying to schedule this, and Coach has got baseball games and this activity and that activity, and we're actually recording during. John and I took vacation time from work so that we could get this recorded in. So
and that's why I did it during the day, because at nighttime it's it's either soccer, field hockey practice or baseball practice. So it's like they're all they're out of school, but they're it's easy to do it during the day than at night when they've got to be going places.
Right. All right, so we went. You're a GM. What made you decide to get into radio? Because that was your next step, and then we'll wrap this up.
I was sitting here, and the morning radio host had been here he just retired. I think he did 32 years, and he was really good. And I just said, hey, would you guys want me to come in and guest host with you? I could talk sports and basketball, whatever. And they go, yeah. And so it was something that it gave me an opportunity to one day a week, go in and talk for 4 hours about sports. And I talk, and I always try to give them a perspective from the front office, whether it's baseball, basketball, because sometimes decisions aren't just made as quickly as people think, or things behind the scenes, like a GM may want to do something, the owner said, no, we can't do it, and the GM is taking the blame for it, because that's what you did as a GM. But it was tough because, I would get up at 3:30 in the morning and be down there by 5 a.m. to go on air at 6. So that was, it was a tough gig to do that, but it was only one day a week. But it it was a lot of fun, but and it was tough at times because when you had to be critical of people that you were friends with, like the Ty Roseman, the GM of the Eagles, you sort of had to dance a little bit around, taking shots.
Right. Oh, and I had one more question before we end. Vandegaard had one, and so how crazy, he talked a little bit about is draft day.
Yeah.
Right? Do you know exactly who's on your board? I assume you know who's on your board, but do you have a pretty good idea who's going to take who, or is it a little bit of a crazy at times?
You pretty much, by the time you get to draft day, like we'd rank them 1 through 60. And that's how we would take them, as they come off the board, then we would take the next guy that was there as we see them. And you get an idea by talking around who's going to take what. And so as the board starts going, that's when you start trying to trade up. You say, okay, that guy's going to be, let's move up and see if we can get this player now. So that's what I spent all my time on the phones trying to trade up or trade back or buy a pick or do that. That was to me the best day of the job is draft day.
Really? Yeah, Vandegaard said it was crazy, and because he was your scout.
Yeah.
And he was the one saying, "Hey, I scouted this guy, and I think he's worth this." And
and I'd be saying, call so and so to see if you can find out what they're going to do with their pick if they want to sell it. And I had everybody call that team, and then and they's like, "Yeah, how much?" I said, "Give them $300,000 for that pick," and they said, "Okay, we'll take it."
So out on Bird Fans Forever is the promotional highlight video from my senior year made by none other than Coach, right? And so
I had to use my TV experience from editing and shooting the camera the year before I got there. So I used my experience there.
So thank you very much, Coach. Thanks for being on. Love you. This is where we turn the stage over to you to close.
No, I just want to say that I'm glad you did this because to me, I look at those 4 years really, I think back to them because it was a foundation for me. Coming out of college, I had worked 1 year, but people I met, whether it's you guys, the players, Ron Wellman, the coaches, Larry Lyons, I still think about the lessons I learned there, and a lot of it I took with me on when I became an assistant coach of the Pacers and other places along the way. And I think back, I probably would say not a week goes by where I don't think back to my time at Illinois State. I tell everybody, I said, I had the best job ever. I thought I was going to live there the rest of my life. They paid me like $33,000. They gave me a car, paid for my gas, paid for my insurance. My apartment was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, $500 a month. I said I didn't need anything. They had a bar named Stan's that I went to my buddy Butch owned. I said I was set for life. I could have lived there the rest of my life. But no, it was the greatest experience ever for someone right out of college.
Yep, and thank you for being my coach. Man, it never can repay you enough. What you guys did for us was awesome and love it. So this is episode 40 with Coach Billy King, and we are signing out.
Yes.